Previously, we explained how the PSA weighs each factor to predict the 3 pretrial outcomes. And we discussed how the assessment arrives at a scaled score from 1 to 6. At this point, you might be asking yourself, what do these scores actually mean? What does it tell us when the score is 2 for FTA or 4 for NCA? In this video, we'll look at what those scores tell us about a person's likelihood of succeeding on pretrial release. As we'll see, what the data show us is great news for the community, and it might surprise some of you. The vast majority of people succeed on pretrial release. On average, around 80% of people return for their court appearance and are not arrested for a new offense while on pretrial release. Recall that when the researchers created the PSA, they scored the tool for 750,000 cases in the original development dataset. Then they validated the PSA on 500,000 new cases. What we'll be looking at are the averages of the results from both of those data sets. We'll start by looking at the failure to appear results. The y-axis on the left shows the FTA score, from a low score of 1 at the top to a high score of 6 at the bottom. The x-axis on the bottom shows the possible successful court appearance rates from 0 to 100%. What you can see here, for example, is that the cases that scored a 1 for FTA appeared in court and were not issued a failure to appear warrant or capias at a rate of 89%. The remaining 11% failed to appear for at least one pretrial court hearing. Moving along the FTA score, you can see that among the cases that scored a 3, 81% appeared in court. For the cases that scored a 6, the highest PSA score, 65% still appeared for all of their pretrial court hearings. This tells us that people on pretrial release, even higher scoring people, succeed at relatively high rates. Let's now turn to the results for new criminal arrest. This slide shows the NCA scores and the corresponding arrest-free rates from the development and validation data sets. That is the percentage of cases in which the person was not arrested for any jailable offense while on pretrial release. You can see that in the group with an NCA score of 1, 91% of the people were not arrested. That is, only 9% of the people with an NCA score of 1 were arrested for a new criminal offense during pretrial release. For cases with a score of 3, their arrest-free rate was 78%. And for cases with NCA scores of 6, those assessed as being most likely to be arrested during pretrial release, those whom you may be the most concerned about, they remained arrest-free about half, or 47% of the time. Okay, let's now look at NVCA, New Violent Criminal Arrest. This slide shows the NVCA scores and the corresponding violent arrest-free rates from the development and validation sites. That is the percentage of cases in which the person was not arrested for a new violent offense while on pretrial release. Notably different from the other outcomes, the success rates for NVCA are very high across all scores. You can see that in the group with an NVCA score of 1, 99% of the people were not arrested for a violent offense. At the other end, for cases with NVCA scores of 6, those assessed as being most likely to be arrested for a new violent offense during pretrial release, they were not arrested for a violent offense 90% of the time. Remember that for NVCA, the PSA does not report a 6-point scale like the one shown here. Instead, it creates a flag to indicate a higher likelihood of being arrested for a new violent criminal offense. If a person scores 1 to 3 points on this outcome, there is no flag. A score of 4 or more triggers the flag. Something to consider is that in most jurisdictions, only a small percentage of cases receive the flag. In this group of cases, 94% did not receive the flag. Only 6% of the cases received a score of 4 or more and had the flag. On this slide, we show the outcomes for those without the violence flag and those with the flag. Here you can see that among the cases that did not receive the flag, the bar on the top, 98% were not arrested for a violent offense pretrial. Of the cases that did receive the flag, the bar on the bottom, 92% were not arrested on a violent offense. Thus, people in both groups were very unlikely to be arrested for a new violent offense while on pretrial release. So, big picture, what does the PSA violence flag tell us? It tells us that very few people on pretrial release are arrested for the kinds of offenses that we are the most concerned about. What these data demonstrate is that while the presence of a violence flag means that there is an elevated likelihood of being arrested for a new violent offense, the vast majority of people with the violence flag were not, in fact, arrested. The presence of a flag gives you a reason to look a little closer at the case, to examine the factors to see why the flag is there, to take time to review the case carefully and see if there are other circumstances in the case or the person's history that may justify more restrictive release conditions. You will need to carefully consider how you will use the violence flag, if at all, in your pretrial decision-making. I want to return to what I said at the start of this video. The vast majority of people succeed on pretrial release. Most people attend all of their pretrial court hearings and do not receive warrants for failure to appear. They relatively rarely get arrested for a new offense. And even more rarely do they get arrested for a new violent offense. Data from the PSA research demonstrate very clearly that released people succeed in very high numbers. In both the development and validation data sets, the group with the highest scores on the PSA, scores of 5 or 6, still succeeded about 1/2 to 2/3 of the time. We encourage you to keep these data in mind as you develop and implement your new pretrial policies.